Mark Berman, he was on recently with a couple shows on YouTube, Knicks Buzz and also the Nick of
Yeah,
Time
he's making
show.
the rounds, huh?
Yeah, he's making the rounds. He got to get his name out there. You know, everybody reads it in print, but now they want to put the name to the face. So now you're seeing Berman a lot more on YouTube, actually allowing other content creators to get access to him. So I think that's dope. So I want to give a shout out to him for that. And on a couple of the shows, he's mentioned that Tom Thibodeau is actually agreeing with what a lot of us have been saying, and that he messed up not playing the kids to more this season. So George, when you first heard that, what did you think?
I thought, well, for one, I thought, of course, he has to regret it. I mean, we may have many issues with him, but he's not a dumb man. He's a very smart man. He just took a left turn and, like a man, never stopped and asked for directions back.
He's too prideful.
Too prideful, exactly. So it was refreshing to hear him admit it, because the gaslighting that we went through as a fan base and as content creators was pretty severe, and then you have that whole other group, which I appreciate. I appreciate his supporters. I do. They want to believe, and I mean, he has credentials that are worthy of believing in him. So I don't have an issue with people believing in him. But when the inverse of that is, we don't know what we're talking about. That's the rough part. So it was nice to hear him admit this. Oh yeah, there it is. The tweet. Sweeney Pooh. Oh, you're muted.
Whoopsie. To me, it was kind of crazy though, because if you looked at it, I'm not looked at it, but if you look at what he said, now what was it, 2 or 3 weeks, prior, he was mentioning that we had to watch the game 2 or 3 times before we could come to the conclusion that there were issues with his rotation. Now, here at the end of the season, he's able to look back and say, hey, maybe you guys were actually correct. So to me, I just think it just shows how dysfunctional I think the Knicks were this season, that you have the coach saying one thing, disagreeing with what the vast majority of both fans of the team and just fans of basketball have been saying. And now he's going to turn around and say, in private, not even in public, and say that he might have made a mistake by not playing them guys. I think it's upsetting, but looking at it positively, hopefully next season he'll go into it with a new mindset. And on the show, Berman mentioned a few names, Obi, Quick, Deuce. So hopefully now that he's on the right path, or we can hope that he's on the right path, and we can see more of these guys integrated into the rotation and getting a lot more minutes. Because in this live stream, we'll also be going through some of the young guys, giving them grades, and also looking at what we would do, what role we would put them in next season if we were, coach and GM.
That's a great point about it, pointing towards next season. Because if he really does genuinely feel like that, then he probably will embrace playing the younger guys more next season. So that's a good thing. Now, again, this is only privately. Privately, he realizes this stuff. He hasn't said it out to the public. He hasn't really said much to make us feel good in terms of his public opinions. But if this is true, that is a good sign. It just, he's such a stubborn guy that I think that's what it comes down to. He's just stubborn. And then that hurts everything. That impacts everything, because it impacts his in-game decisions. Like all of that stubbornness trickles down into everything. The positives are when something does work, he really does stick with it. So maybe now he finally got a taste of that with the younger guys. Okay, this works. I'm going to stick with this as far as I can go with it. Let's hope. That's my hope, that this can be a positive thing.
Yeah, man. The fact that he's saying it privately, I think we just have to wait and see it in effect. If he heads into the season next year and he's playing more minutes, or he's giving more minutes to Quick, giving more minutes to Obi, then I think you can kind of stomach the team returning with him as head coach, but we can't see more of what we saw this season. We can't see him going against the grain and trying to somehow try to justify not giving those guys extended minutes, especially with the sample size we saw at the end of the season. And I know some people argue about, it not really being meaningful games and things like that, but you saw Obi shooting stroke.
Those were meaningful games for the other teams.
Exactly. And you also saw Obi shooting stroke, whether those are meaningful games or not, Obi has to knock down those shots, and he's knocking them down at a high clip. Some of them were contested. So I think that's something that can carry over to next season. You also saw Obi create some for himself, or, IQ, Obi, they've got some synergy playing together. So if we can take that and just start putting these young guys in better positions to succeed, I think this team is going to be back in the picture next year, where we may not be, playoff contending, but we should be, play in just off what we have right now. So I don't want them to go into the offseason, try and get crazy, move some of these young guys. I think that's something that really sticks out to me too, the fact that he's fond of Quick, of Obi, of Deuce. So that means I would assume he's not going to sign off on trading them in the offseason. So that gives me a little bit of security, because we don't know what's going to happen. Tibbs, his feet is at the fire, front office feet is at the fire. And, he didn't hear anything about Cam. We heard Quick, we heard Obi, we heard Deuce, but I haven't heard any news about Cam. And that's a guy I'm pretty concerned about when it comes to us in this offseason. I don't think he's a Tibbs guy, honestly.
I think you're right. I think we're unsure about what's going to happen with Cam. Maybe Cam's going to be traded, and that's why he didn't spend much time talking about him. Which would suck, because I think Cam has such a high ceiling. Be nice to see him explore it on our team. But if he's not going to give him time, then that's not going to happen. So it's going to. This offseason is so pivotal for the direction of this franchise for the next 5 years at least. I can't wait to see what actually ends up developing. Beginning with the lottery, because the lottery, if we get lucky in the lottery, that could impact everything.
Yep. And speaking of the lottery, if the Clippers go out and lose today, which, they'll be playing without PG-13, if they lose and the Pelicans get into the playoffs, then I think that would advance us from the 12th to the 11th seed, if I'm not mistaken. Right, George?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be rooting for the Pelicans. They can go out there, get the victory, and then we can better our chances to try and move up in the draft.
In fact, I'm going to look up the odds. What happens is, if right now we have a 7.1% chance of getting into the top 4. If the Pelicans win, then we will have a 9.4% chance. So we increased 2.5 percentage points.
Let's go for that 2 percentage points. Let's go. That's all we got to root for right now.
Dude, we get the number 4 pick. We package that with Julius Randle. Send them both out of town. And get back something that can work with RJ and the young core. I mean, that'll just totally revitalize this franchise.
Uh-huh.